Let's go.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Marwan and Mozayen from Silvergrain I'm the editor-in-chief.
And I'm Charys Schuler. I'm the developmental editor of SilvergrainClassics.
Yeah, and we would like to welcome you to our Fireside chat. I hope you guys had a nice Christmas or holidays. And we are happy that you could join us all. And I also would like to welcome our panelists, which is Johannes Bockemühl, the CEO of JOBO. We have the photographer Christoph Morlinghaus. I always do the same mistake. And Andrew Church from KODAK Alaris. And special thanks to Bill Mannings to jumping in the last minute because Nick Carver couldn't join us today through not of his fault, his own. But he will be there in a later episode.
That's right. We're here to talk a little bit about 2020 and 2021. And I guess 2020 has been, everybody will agree, kind of tough for just about everyone all over the world. And that was certainly true for us also at SilvergrainClassics. We came into 2020 feeling really confident and very excited because we started with our magazine in brick and mortar stores on Friday, the 13th of March. That was obviously a bad sign to begin with, and it didn't get any better because then everything closed down a few days later. We had our lockdown here in Germany, and obviously the sales in brick and mortar stores have not been great this year. But there was a silver lining to the story because we were carried in a very small little bookstore in San Francisco. And in that store, the photographic coordinator for Jeff Bridges came across our magazine and contacted us, which led to an exclusive interview with Jeff, the dude, which was really cool. And that contact with him has carried on throughout the year. And we're also looking forward to doing some more stuff with him in 2021. So that was really a neat thing that came out of a very unfortunate circumstance. So I guess we're all looking for silver linings, and that's what we're hoping that you will all feel with us. So I'll just pass off to Marwan, who's going to introduce the first guest.
Yeah, well, our first guest and friend is Johannes Bockemühl from Germany. In addition of being the CEO of JOBO, he is a passionate large format photographer. And his grandfather founded JOBO almost 100 years ago because he wanted to develop films, but had no darkroom. And yeah, that was the story, how it began, the JOBO modular system, developing film equipment. Yeah, Johannes, how did you see 2020 and what's your outlook?
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks for hosting this show to SilvergrainClassics. And I hope everyone who's joining us now has had a wonderful Christmas time. And in spite of COVID-19, been able to relax a bit and gather some hope for the next year. And I think that's what this meeting is about as well. So yeah, thanks for the introduction on JOBO. And we've been around since 1923, as Marwan has said, and we've had a few rough times, and I'm very glad to report that many times and years have been rougher on JOBO economically than this current year. So I'm actually quite positive that for a change, at least compared with the last 10 years, JOBO has been doing better than the average camera manufacturer. Who is still mainly focused on digital, or still is my phrase now. And I would hope that we would see something new in camera manufacturers' activities on the analog side. But I don't want to waste my time talking about other camera manufacturers when you asked about JOBO this year. So yes, we have had a good year, and maybe one of the bleakest part was that this, I think you're seeing this in mirrored version, right?
No, it's the right way around.
Okay, only I'm seeing it mirrored. So, okay, 10 years photokina, that was 1950 to 1960. We got this little piece of cardboard, and a few years later, JOBO got things that were even too big to put in my shelf behind me, because we've been joining photokina since the very first start in 1950. And that was probably even a sadder moment for my dad than for me, who realized that with photokina vanishing, a lot of his memories came back with wonderful meetings, also with good economical successes. But the thing that seems to last is the impressions and good conversations that supersede economy at such events as photokina. So I hope we will not go digital with every activity in the future, but certainly that change has been a big impact, things going digital. And due to photokina not taking place, I was even more thrilled to have this new catalog. JOBO, all our products are in here, and it's available in print. So if someone does contact us on Facebook or Instagram and takes the time to give us his personal address, we promise we won't let you down, and we'll send you a hard copy, as long as we can afford it with Brexit and everything else. So that little loophole leaving me an exit in case you live in the Fiji Islands and we can't post it to you. But anyway, so we were glad to have the new catalog launched this year. And you can also spot in the back, in the rear behind me, a Chamonix camera. And we've been distributing these wonderful large format cameras since 2016. And it's been going really well and picking up a bit also this year. So I think that's a promising outlook, because people who invest their time, I should say, not only money, their time into analog photography, they must be serious about photography, and they don't invest into such an object to put it in the shelves, I don't think. And so that gives me hope that we will see many more beautiful analog photographic results in the future. And that's also been an encouragement to us to introduce something special this year. We have introduced a platinum printer. You can see a small little result here. That's one of my own little, it's a small, tiny building, and next to a church. It's a whole house, but it's tiny. I don't want to live there with my family, but I think it looks really nice. And so I made this platinum print this year. And that's something we can do with a UV printer. And it's not a big seller, but it's something very special and nice. And I think it fits the niche market of the artistic handcraft photography. So that's been nice, just as well as the Alpinist X. And I'm glad for the reports we got on this and the tests. And apart from losing photokina, we were very sad to cancel a lot of our workshops. So especially with international professionals such as Alan Ross, which would have taken place this summer. So yeah, we are very sorry, and we are not even sure we can do it next year, because at the moment our COVID expectations in Germany, at least at the emotional level, are not on the upside, because vaccination has started, but lockdown is upon us. So let's wait till end of January. Maybe we will look into a brighter spot and future concerning workshops there. I think for next year, my time is pretty much drawing to an end. So one thing I do want to announce, which is in our catalog, you have seen also the Mistral already, but we're not only introducing the Mistral, but also these wonderful, nice film hangers, photo clips, film clips to dry your film. So these will be available again next year, along with our Mistral. And we have the one or other surprise in the pipeline I don't want to mention yet, because I don't know if things will delay as much as this year. So it's not so nice to being too specific about products and dates, but we are positive that the momentum that we have seen this year will continue next year, or at least what we have built up will stay at this level, because our hobby is not only a hobby, photography is a passion. And that's why I think everyone who's joining this conference is taking time now, because it's something we feel is more precious maybe than just spending time in the car and taking a spin. So yeah, I'm interested to see what my other colleagues and the participants have to say, and don't want to bore you with more of an introduction. So let's see where we go.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. And of course, we're all looking forward to seeing what your surprises will be then during the year. But now I'm going to introduce Bill Manning, who is our second guest. Bill is joining us from the United States, where he produces and hosts the 1 Hour Photo podcast, which is a production of his studio C41. And through his work, he has a really great overview of what's happening in the entire analog community. So we're really looking forward to hearing from Bill and what he has to say.
Well, thank you, Charys, Marwan. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be amongst Johannes, Andrew, Christoph. First of all, very, very special thank you. So as Charys introduced myself, I am the host of the 1 Hour Photo podcast. I have been doing this since 2017, and the podcast is certainly gone through different phases where it has been primarily discussions about what's happening in the analog community. And now that has kind of changed a little bit as a result of COVID-19, where my co-hosts are at home now, and so it's kind of changed the dynamic of the show to where now I've turned to more so interviewing photographers, contemporary artists in the industry. And so it's very similar. It's kind of funny how SilvergrainClassics and I, we kind of have almost like a very similar style, but mine is probably more consumed in an auditory kind of sense, and as well as some, progression into YouTube. So that has been a very interesting time, at least for my podcast, and seeing how does this show grow? How do we move into a visual? We saw that podcasting numbers went down a little bit for a lot of podcasters. I'm friends with a lot of other film photography related podcasts, and we had a conversation. Well, our numbers are down, and it's not always about numbers, but we want to be able to continue on moving forward with the show because we all love what we do. And so what we are now seeing is that podcast style is certainly making a big move into YouTube. And so we're starting to see where these long format, for example, like Joe Rogan, even though it's nothing related to photography by any means, but we do see that there is a trend with long format talk show related entertainment really getting a strong foothold in the YouTube space. So analog photography has certainly, many of us have moved into that space. And so that has been something that we have been seeing during COVID. So something that it's one of those things that's been very difficult being very in touch with everybody in the community, or at least try to be. A lot of artists were significantly impacted during this pandemic. And, a lot of artists try to do print sales and collaborative industries where, they're trying to, make ends meet. A lot of artists that I know, at least here in the US, filed for unemployment. So it has been a very difficult time for a lot of these artists, creatives in general as well, where work just went dry completely because companies either went under or they've changed their strategy as far as how they do their work. So a lot has changed in that regards, and so right now, there is certainly very much a big struggle in that. And I don't think that, right when 2021 hits, that all these problems are going to go away. It's going to be a progression, as Johannes was mentioning earlier, that, this is going to be, iterations, and as more and more people start getting vaccinations, but that's going to take time. So that's something that we've been seeing, certainly has been very difficult for artists in this time. And so with my platform, I did try to kind of pivot and say, okay, I have a listener base. What can I do to help these artists and try to give them a voice? If it's a print sale that they're trying to do, have them come onto the show and maybe they can talk about that. So that's been kind of what I've been doing this whole year. So all from pretty much this space in a new studio space downtown Atlanta, and so we're certainly seeing a lot of growth. I'm feeling very optimistic for 2021, though.
Great.
Well, that on one side, it's sad, especially apart from the point of the artist, but I'm glad that things at least look positive into the future. Yeah, well, let's get to our next guest, which is from Germany, Christoph Morlinghaus. Christoph is a photographer, artist, cosmopolitan citizen of the world. And his large format images are created with amazing technical knowledge and precision, and his subjects range from huge ocean liners to microchips. His prints command large sums at galleries, and he has also created images for companies like Lufthansa, Nike, and IBM, just to mention a few. So, Christoph, how did you experience the pandemic time in 2020, and what is your outlook to 2021?
First, thank you for having me on your webinar with this group of distinguished panelists. 2020 was definitely a weird year. It started really good. So I went to New York to pre-produce a couple of images, and I had an art dealer, and he said, just produce some and I'm going to sell them like immediately. So we produced some for quite some substantial amount of money, and he sold none of them. So everybody claimed market uncertainties, and he just could not move any one of those images. And then we had that huge lockdown here, and from that on, it was a year of rest and relaxation. There was not really a lot of stuff going on since. Stayed at home and did a lot of cooking. I did some work. I went to walked around shooting with the 8x10 camera on some black and white film. Did some contact works, where I just got into my darkroom again and just did contacts of 8x10. And scanning negatives, reworking, remastering older work, older projects, going through negatives, see if I've missed something, and just basically reworked my back catalog. And that was about it. So it was a very, very quiet year.
I unmute. Yeah, I think it would make sense just for the other ones to have an idea about Christoph's images, because just to understand, because I mean, photography is about photographers. It's not only gear, but in fact, he's doing some amazing work. It's kind of like, maybe it just would explain a little bit the background. If our colleagues could start, there's something. I think we prepared something. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so this is one of my more recent projects called Superlatives, which I did in cooperation with a German agency called Photogloria. And this, for example, is the yellow wall of Borussia Dortmund, which is the largest standing theater in Europe for football. Yeah, so this was all shot on 8x10 on Portra 400.
Well, that was obviously before the pandemic. So.
It was just barely so. So it was before the pandemic. I wanted to make a side project out of it, just do more of those. And obviously this just wouldn't work because stadiums are just closed. It's another from the same project, Meyer Werft, world's largest dry dock, roofed dry dock. Sometimes they just let me in there for a short period of time, and you have an exposure time for like an hour or something because it's really dark and people get annoyed. And this is one of them. Same project, that's the largest drinking water supplier in Germany. And this is where they store the water. This is the largest lignite mining in Germany. It's like an entire artificial landscape. It's all 8x10 again. This was an editorial shot for Wired magazine. It's the Kern River oil field in Bakersfield, California. Also like a totally weird man-made landscape. That's landscape. Landscape, I think, is always difficult to shoot it and not have it look like postcards or kitsch or something like that. I think landscape is one of the most difficult subjects I'm working with. Same thing, where I just try to get have the sun right behind my back. So it's almost like a ring flash where you have almost no shadow and the entire landscape is flattened, also 8x10. This is from a short endeavor with a 12x20 inch camera. It's just too much of a camera. So it's really that huge fridge on a tripod. It's very difficult and you get little work done. So this was a dead end. But the same thing, also shot on 12x20. It's the Milwaukee Art Museum. That's from my time where I shot on a lot of stuff on X-ray film. I just drove around Miami and just channeling my inner Eugene Adji and shooting stuff on X-ray film. This is a shot that I did during one of our workshops with SilvergrainClassics in Brussels, which was really fun. It's another thing that got canceled 2020, the workshops, which I really miss a lot. Johannes would know this picture. It's also in the JOBO catalog. It's the TWA check-in on John F. Kennedy Airport. But when it was really close to the public. It's my most recent public project before everything shut down. This is like an artificial city for the military in Eastern Germany. This is the underground part, and it's supposed to be a railway station. This is something that from a technical side, I'm pretty proud. This is a really super small computer chip. It's basically like half of my little pinky. Shot on 8x10, so you have 2 meters, about 7 foot camera extension, and it was really, really difficult to shoot. So whenever a truck drove by or somebody switched on the AC, you could just start anew. So this is probably one of my most technical demanding series. It was fun. It's the luggage belt at Terminal 5 Airport, where I just sneaked in with my 8x10 and claiming that I'm working for the company that did the ceiling panels. Just totally bogus. And I had a bogus letter of recommendation, and I had a friend that said, if this number, if anybody calls you, just say company, and you claim you're the CEO. And I really got away with it, just shooting in an airport with an 8x10 camera. It's something I did for a while. It's just those mid-century iconic ecclesiastical buildings. So this is the United States Air Force Chapel in Colorado Springs. It's the biggest tourist attraction in Colorado and was just packed with people. And the minister there was a really nice guy, big, heavy guy, and he just pushed everybody out there and shoot everybody out there. And everybody waited outside for me to finish shooting that one. And so, yeah, that's something that I'm doing.
You have also, I think, some projects in 2021 that could be done also during the, even if there's a shutdown. I think you just had some kind of ideas about that.
Yeah. So basically 2020 felt like 2008 a little bit, well, with that financial meltdown. And the thinking there was just, I need to be self-sufficient. So I just cannot be dependent on people buying my work or people giving me jobs. And back then I just bought myself a finca in Colombia. I just totally want to drop out for a while and be totally self-sufficient. And I think there's a similar thinking right now. I just need to be like super, super self-sufficient. And the idea there being just take my Chamonix on my bicycle and have like at least 6-month epic bicycle trip where I will cycle through Europe and have a couple of smaller side projects that continue with the Form Faith, the ecclesiastical architecture, dams in Switzerland, the frontier between Morocco and the Spanish enclaves in Ceuta and stuff like that. So I have a couple of smaller projects where I will just cycle to and have a lightweight camera
and we plan to do that instantly. You're going to send us the material. We're going to immediately develop it and report about it.
Yes, that would be pretty awesome.
So it's not like your personal selfie. We're gonna send it. Cool. We're very, very curious to see that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Christoph.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
So much. Yeah, so we will move on to our last guest, definitely not least. That's Andrew Church, who's from Great Britain. And Andy is responsible for sales and marketing for Kodak Alaris. And he mentioned to us that he's worked for Kodak since 1989. And that sometimes he feels like he's grown old in the company. But I mean, to me, that just means that he's been through the heyday of film photography in Kodak, but also, you know, the sudden downturn. And he's got a really amazing perspective. So I'll definitely be very interested to hear your thoughts on 2020 and what we hope will be happening in the future.
Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. Lovely to share a platform with you all, and really enjoyed seeing your images, Christoph. I did go to the Yellow Wall with Borussia Dortmund versus Bayern Munich, and was lucky enough to see a 0-0 draw. So how's your luck? Anyway, so yes, so 2020, I think the message or the feeling going into 2020 was very positive, I think probably for most of us. But who really knew what was to come? Probably not even Bill Gates knew what was to come, what was expected. And I think the whole year has been dominated by supply or difficulties of supply, all really related to the pandemic. Things started okay, but New York, which is where, so the Kodak manufacture all the photographic film that we sell as Kodak Alaris. So Eastman Kodak manufacture the film, and Kodak Alaris sell the film worldwide. We have the rights to sell still film, not movie film, just still film, and we sell that globally around the whole world. So all the production of film is done in Building 38, which is in New York State, up New York State in Rochester. New York was hit quite early in the pandemic, and the first real effect was the warehouse closing in New York, which gave us lots of basically stop supply, but we managed to circumnavigate that warehouse to get it to our main distributor warehouse in Colorado. Unfortunately, Colorado then went into lockdown, and that gave us some more problems. And then also we had issues with the production site then going into lockdown and stopping at one point. So that we've also had, well, it's numerous issues in different ways. We were air shipping film to try to keep supply coming through very quickly. So all the film that came to Europe was air shipped. Unfortunately, again, due to the pandemic, the cost of air shipping went up by 5 times the normal price. So that again stopped us from air shipping, which essentially put another month delay. So with everything, we then had to go on a sea container. So it takes 4 or 5 weeks for a sea container to get to Europe, which causes another gap in supply. And then I think it's probably really interesting to appreciate that obviously manufacturing film is a very complicated process, and Eastman Kodak purchased chemicals from a number of different suppliers around the world, and some of those chemicals have a 6-month lead time. And it's very difficult to adjust anything in terms of or find alternative suppliers. And of course, what happened is gradually around the world, those suppliers went into lockdown as well, which stopped the supply of chemicals coming through, which made it even more difficult to manufacture film. So it's been a very bumpy, rocky journey this year in terms of getting film produced and distributed and into the market. And also, I think it's probably well documented now that the supplier map of companies that supply film to the market is changing and evolving, particularly on color film. And we've seen probably market share increase towards Kodak film, particularly for color film. So we've had higher demands put on our production capacity. And we'd already gone really to the limit of that production capacity. So we've had to put a large amount of investment in to increase the production capacity. But what I'm seeing now is the fruits from that investment starting to come through. And I think going into 2021, the backlog of film that I know exists, which is a huge mountain really, is gradually going to be brought down. It's not going to change over very quickly, but it will gradually start to come down. And you should see by the end of this year a very smooth supply of film from Kodak. And I, for one, am really looking forward to that. It make me sleep a lot easier. So that's the main thing I'm really looking forward to in 2021. We have also got a couple of new additions to our portfolio that we're looking at. I think I can't tell you what they are because I don't want to get people too excited in terms of announcing something and then not being able to deliver. But one of them would be something that would be relaunched from something that we had previously, and perhaps a new product that would also come to market. So I'm looking forward to that. I couldn't say any more on that at the moment, but that's sort of a very early heads up, really. Some work that we're actually looking at currently. And then I think the other thing that's quite exciting for me at the moment is so we have a marketing website on Instagram called Kodak Professional _Europe. That's been going for just over a year now. It's managed by Charys, and he's done a really good job, and he's got our number of followers up to 35,000. And of course, that's a really timely way, or a very pertinent way to launch a little competition. 35 is a very important number for the film community with 35mm film. So we're taking the opportunity to run a competition for 7 weeks and giving out 5 rolls of film for each week. So 35 rolls of film over the 7 weeks. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing all the images that come through. If you visit us on Instagram, you can see the terms of conditions for the entering. But really, it's a very open competition, and we'd really like everybody to submit an entry and see if they can win some film from us. So yeah, putting behind us a very difficult year. Very much looking forward to 2021, smooth supply, and maybe some new products on the horizon.
Well, that does sound exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're even more excited to for all the surprises that 2021 is going to bring. But thank you, first of all, for what you've all said so far. And now I think we can move into the kind of the discussion round. So if y'all want to unmute your mics so we can hear what you say. I guess one thing that we know that some of you wanted to communicate with each other, we kind of got little hints when we were setting this up, was that I think, Christoph, you had some questions for Andy, or has he already said that he can't answer them?
I was told that I'm not to ask if this or that product will ever be available. But
this wasn't Kodachrome, is it?
No, it was Kodak Disc Film. Kodak Disc Film.
Oh, Kodak Disc Film.
I'm not asking about the Kodachrome.
Yes, so you're asking about Kodak Disc Film coming back?
No,
are you? That would be that'd be extraordinary.
No, the Plus X film.
Ah, Plus X, yeah. So Plus X is a film that I would like to see come back. It was kind of, well, it was discontinued because I think at the time T-Max film had a sharper grain. It was a newer T-grain technology and gave a sharper image on black and white. But I think lots of people reminisce over Plus X. Charlie Abbas, for one, is a big fan of Plus X, and we have had conversations about the possibility of bringing Plus X, but there's no plans to do it at the moment. But I think the phrase "never say never" is a good one. So I could never make any promises, but I know that it's something that has been looked at in recent years. So who knows? Who knows? We'll see.
I had the opportunity to meet with Tim Ryugo here in the States at WPPI right before everything went crazy. And Tim likes to play with my emotions and say, if you had a chance for a film to come back, which one would it be? And it kind of actually led to a very exciting story that I actually did write a piece about. And I actually found a roll of Kodak Gold 120.
Wow.
Well, there we go. And it was absolutely exciting to shoot this, and I was very happy with the results. And so I went back to Tim and I said, I would love to see a consumer 120 film come back to market, if it was gold or even Ultramax or Color Plus, to see something like that, because entry into medium format has gotten a lot easier now, and it's a lot more attainable. And so now I've only have a couple rolls left of this, and it's very much expired. This is 2001, but I got very lucky on a few frames, and so I'm now left with a really big tease on how exciting this film is. So please make a consumer 120.
So you're certainly not the first person that's mentioned or would requested gold film to come back in 120 format, and just imagine that. So I think this year, 2021, is a big year for lots of reasons that we've already stated, but it's also the 120th anniversary of 120 film. So wouldn't it be great to see gold come back in 120 format? Yes, it would, wouldn't it? So I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? I'm sorry if Tim was playing with your emotions, but I guess he's in a privileged position. So yeah, who knows? Let's yeah, I'll keep my fingers crossed for that one.
Same here.
Well, you didn't say no. That's good.
I didn't say no, did I? Well, I haven't said yes either. So sorry to leave you hanging.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about workshops and things. A lot of us are involved with workshops in one way or another. Maybe some people know that Silvergrain isn't just a magazine. We also have workshops and things, and we've had to cancel just about everything and are looking at moving into online workshops and wondering, but Johannes also does a whole great series of workshops. And yeah, it's just interesting to think about, where is the workshop going to go now in 2020? I mean, we have lots of different opinions about people saying, oh, as soon as people can congregate again, then nobody's ever going to want to do another online workshop because we're all so sick of them. And there are other people who are saying, well, this year has been the death of these in-person workshops because everybody's gotten so used to doing it this way. It's so much more convenient. You can see people from around the world. So I don't know. What do you guys, what's your bets? What do you think is going to happen? No takers?
Well, maybe I think that's for Johannes a very interesting thing, because I know that you have a very cool workshop place also. So
well, yeah, I could comment on this briefly, because these are very good questions, and we've asked them ourselves. We've asked a couple of participants, but not really many. It's been more a thing we've been discussing with workshop instructors, actually. And I'm going back and forth with Alan Ross and Julie, actually, Alan's wife, who is coordinating a lot of his projects. And they have actually done a few digital workshops, but they have been, I've actually joined a couple of them. They have been a much shorter format, because the way you interact is very, very different. So it's more like 1 hour at a time. And what I could envision to do is a project, that workshop, having different time slots during a day, over a weekend, and then maybe an intersection of a week, and maybe even people handing in some results of what they have applied from the workshop later. But then, even though digital sounds like, oh, it's so much less work, it is not. It's only less traveling. But the preparation probably exceeds the face-to-face interaction. And it still doesn't replace the face-to-face interaction. And I remember hitting Christoph Morlinghaus on his shoulder when we were talking, just because his comment on the JOBO product was right, hitting me in the sweet spot. And I thought, yes. And that's something you don't really see happening in the same way online. So I think there is pros and cons, and also that you can record something and maybe revisit a video format later. I would much prefer, to be honest. I'm an analog guy. The best things in life are analog, as Mirko Bödecker from ADOC says, and I think it's very true. We all have analog friends who we can touch and feel and see, and not only digital vibes and filters. So there's something to doing things digitally, and it enhances our learning, and it maybe is a different way of learning. So some things might actually profit from this, but overall, I would love to go back to face-to-face workshops, and we plan to have those workshops that don't have necessarily too much contact next year in the studio, but workshops which are designed to where everyone needs to cram around the shoulder of the instructor. I think these workshops are not for 2021.
Yeah. Well, I think Christoph had his question to Andrew. Did you already ask it, or?
No, I think one thing I would like to know, I'm not sure if that's a little bit different, is how about knowledge, like coating, making emulsions, the entire knowledge, technical knowledge that one must have to code film and have such a complicated product. Will it still be around? Because I wonder, there are few people choosing a career path into analog film, or am I wrong? So I wonder if the knowledge will still be around in the future.
It's a good question. Yeah, and so obviously, so I live in London. I live in northwest London, in a borough called Harrow, and Harrow was the site of the last sensitizing machine for photographic paper, and I worked at that site for 20 years before it closed. So worked very closely with the manufacturing process, and I worked also as part of our R&D as a principal scientist for a period of time there as well. And during that time, most of the emulsions in that particular point of time for the paper, photographic paper, were designed, the color couplers were designed in Harrow. So a lot of development work was done actually in Harrow, and then sent over for testing and adoption into the production process in America. But similarly, there's lots of chemical engineers and chemical scientists working both in Harrow and also in Rochester. And I've seen most of those people retire. And it is, you could say it's a concern as to, you know, where does that knowledge go when those people do sort of leave and go and do something else. Film's been developing and still is developing. It's been developed for more than 140 years now, so it's been a long time in the making. I think the real advancements of film have probably been in the last probably 10 years back, and development's probably slowed a little bit then. I think also it's well known that because of the advent of digital cameras and mobile phones with digital cameras installed in them, that the volume of film has shrunk beyond recognition really of where it was in 2021. So less than 20 years ago, 2021 was our peak year for film production, and even 3 years ago the amount of film that was produced was less than 1% of what it was in 2021. But it has started to come up. It sort of plateaued and started to increase. And so the infrastructure and the development and the liquidity of the business and being able to pay salaries for people to develop film when everything was in decline was a very tough balance. And so a lot of people have retired, people that have worked in film for the whole of their working career, but there still are people around, people with knowledge, and they still exist. Really, all I would say, as far as I know, they're all based in Rochester, New York now. But there are enough very clever people still involved, working really for Eastman Kodak, that are looking at the film production process, refining that process, and looking at what films that they bring to the market. And that's a statement not just for still film, but also for movie film. So I think film's almost gone through a natural cycle, but there's been in recent years an uptick. There's been fresh interest, fresh enthusiasm in film, which is great news for all of us really looking forward. So I think we have lost a lot of knowledge inevitably as people grow older with time, but I still think there's a lot of skill and capability still to be utilized. And I'm sure there's lots of young chemical engineers that would like to have a career in film and research and development in that field.
Okay, it's encouraging. Thanks.
I think the other side of that is that a lot of people have been saying they're a bit worried about the lack of cameras, film cameras that are being produced. And that's kind of the other half of the equation, that we need cameras eventually. I mean, right now there are a whole bunch of, films that it's really great. And there's also a lot of used cameras that you can buy, but at some point we're going to need younger people who have the research and design capabilities to put out a new film camera. So I think that's something that everybody's been thinking about, and we're kind of hoping that there's going to be a need for it, and people are going to see that, and that something is going to happen. So there's going to be some movement in that sector. I think it's something that's been on a lot of people's minds. So
yeah, I think it's a very, very real issue. I'm sure I'm not too concerned at the moment, because I'm sure there's lots of cameras hidden away in wardrobes and under beds and different places around the world. I'm sure in most households there's a film camera hiding away somewhere, not most, but many. But certainly I think it would be great to get a new camera production in some sort of volume form at different levels. I'd love to see a consumer camera, but I'd also love to see some sort of larger format pro cameras being produced now. I know there's lots of issues. It's not just the body of the camera, it's the lens, the shutter. There's lots of complexity in a camera and the control functionality. So but I would hope that some of the camera manufacturers are picking up on the renaissance of photographic film and looking to reproduce analog cameras again. I think, yeah, it would be fantastic if the more cameras that came back to the market, the better for me.
Great.
So I think we should I think there are a lot of viewers who would like to ask some questions, or maybe we should now take the chance to include them in our discussions.
Yeah, we could just sit around and kind of chat with y'all for all night, but
we should do that again.
Yeah, but I think we better get on to some of the questions here. We got several questions per email in advance.
Lots of paper with questions here. It's
coming in.
And there have been different questions coming in through the chat.
chat. So I don't think we're going to have time for all of those either, unfortunately, but we'll get to
And
as
some are
many
also
as we can.
repeating. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
So we will try to get to as many of those as we can. I guess one thing that I thought was very interesting was a question we got per email, which was, what can photographers do to help keep the industry viable? And I guess that's something that probably Johannes and Andy would be the best ones to answer.
I think the easy answer to that, sorry, Johannes. So the easy answer is just to participate within it. I think the more film we produce, the more film needs to be processed, and everything will drive itself. So, and I think the other thing really is to share your experiences with people that you know, encourage other people to pick up a camera and shoot film, explain what you enjoy about shooting film, and share that experience with other people. And I think that will help the growth of film and get, I think, I heard on a news article today that, and people always mention this, and I almost hear it too much now, but vinyl records this year has had its biggest sales year for 30 years. I'm not sure if that was a UK or a worldwide statement or whatever, but I know people are coming more and more back to analog and the more pleasing aesthetics of doing analog music and shooting analog film. And I only hope that this trend continues and more people share and enjoy in that process.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah. There's one quick answer I can give. Someone asked, what was the store in San Francisco? It's called Smoke Signals. So if you're in the San Francisco area, check out Smoke Signals. They helped us out a lot, so give them some love. We had a great question for Johannes. Do you want to take that one?
I think so. I think that's one.
To maybe take the lead that Andrew just offered. I think sharing the emotions that are the positive emotions connected with analog photography is something the analog community is certainly doing. And I think even if I love my wonderful JOBO products, I'm currently advertising more with testimonials of wonderful images created by photo artists, because I believe that especially for people who are not currently doing analog photography, this incentive is much bigger than showing the tool, even though I think there's nothing more beautiful than a JOBO drum and processor. The landscape comes pretty close. And if it's been photographed by John Saxton, who actually does use Kodak film. So maybe, Andrew, we could share the one or other advertisement, but that's on a private note after the conversation. It's going in this direction, and that put aside for catching the interest again of the professionals to go into analog, like even some furniture advertisement that my wife actually would tend to see in the interior house magazines are shot on analog film. And there is something to it, just as Christoph has also pointed out, to analog photography and the use of film that is beyond the emotional level, some technical aspects of the color saturation, of the density of information and the grains instead of pixels. And this is something that is at the professional level, but for the market entry, I think JOBO has done more of a job in creating the entry bundles like the lab kits. We have an S kit, M and L, and we try to give a price advantage to the people who start and to have a one-stop solution to just buy one kit. Like the M kit will do everything from 35 to 120 millimeter film processing, and all else you need is the chemistry and the film, of course, to get started. And that's something we do want to encourage. And yeah, I think players like Adox and Market Direct and also Cinestil, they're a great company. They have created good bundles, and the value you get buying such a bundle, it's extremely attractive. And I think all of us are doing our part to give a low barrier entry with a lot of value to people who start. And we can't give things away for free, but we are making an effort as a whole industry, I think.
There is especially one question which comes again and again, especially to JOBO. And I heard that very often from professional photographers who would like to economize their developing in their studio or their lab. There's the question, will there be a new automatic processor from JOBO that fits to your system, like you had before the ATLs? Something in the future planned, or is there any hope? I mean, you have a good CPP, semi-automatic one, but
yeah. Well, thanks for the question. I've actually made a small reply in the Q&A part, F&A in German. And basically what I've said is we are thinking about it definitely, but the problem is that for us with the new technology, it's a whole new development, even though we can draw back on a lot of things we have implemented in the past. The tooling, the chipset, all of these things need to meet new requirements, and it's not like we can just take an old product out of the box and put a new year on this and sell it. It would be a new product development, and the trickiness of using especially color chemistry, there you need to make absolutely sure that there is no reverse contamination of chemistry in E6. It's wide. It's even if the hoses are too close to each other, the chemistry can go through the hose that transmits the chemistry. So it's more tricky than you would think.
There were some attempts to copy your old machines in Far East, and that went totally belly up.
Yeah, we were actually, of course, I was happy that people realized it was not as easy as it looks.
Yes, exactly.
But there are very clever people all around the world, and the Mac I'm using is made in China. So I have a lot of respect for engineers anywhere in the world. And no one is allowed to be lazy, so that's not my reason for not saying yes. But the price point we would need to ask for is definitely not one that a young artist or a consumer who is not well off would easily spend. So we would have a naturally more limited customer group, and at that price point, again, we would have less people buying it than for $500. Mm-hmm. So that's something we really need to study. We have started a market review actually on this, and Andrew said never say never. I think that's a good closing point. We are considering, but we have no definite answer at the moment.
Right.
Next question, I think, which would be?
Yeah, I guess there was a good one that we got per email in advance, and it said, was wondering what we all see should be the role of the community and the industry in making film accessible to teenagers and the people who are going to be the next generation of film shooters. This person actually started up a school program by asking for donations of old cameras and set up, it sounded like a wonderful program. But I think it's a good forum to just say, what are we all doing, you know, to really engage people who may not be able to afford anything much right at the moment, but to make them see that it's interesting to shoot film and not just their cell phones. We've done, for instance, a Super 8 workshop where I think the youngest participant was 13.
I was really surprised.
Yeah. So I know that Super 8 is really hot with the younger people, and I think a lot of, obviously the Instax films are very popular, but maybe some of the teenagers aren't so familiar with 35 millimeter as they could be. So maybe some of you have programs that are going on that you'd like to tell us about.
So there are a few things that we do, or things that we're starting to do more of again. So I'm looking, particularly in 2021, to help any students at universities to find a sort of competitive way of buying film at a competitive price, so that they have a direct route. So the university can actually buy film for the students and sell it to the students, and try and get the lowest possible price point for those students. So I'm linking now universities to a certain film supplier, a discounted price to give the students the lowest possible price. And I think the other thing we're also looking at doing is trying to support workshops to provide film at a very low price, again, because we really appreciate the output of workshops and what it gives to the students when they participate in workshops. So I think they're very important things. I think ideally what I'd really like to do is to have a consumer film camera that we could sort of an entry point camera for consumers to start to shoot film and start to grow more of an interest in film and then develop it more into those other areas. That's not anything I'm able to do anything with at the moment, but I think that would be something that would be excellent to really get to market. I think the market's kind of ready for a new consumer film, new consumer camera for 35mm film. But particularly with workshops and universities is things that we're doing at the moment. And if anybody has any other ideas, then let me know and see how else we can support the market really. I think also all the work that the good work that people are doing on social media, which shows the images that are captured and allows people to talk about why they chose a specific film and the thought process into shooting or capturing that image on that film. I think that's a good way to reach out to the younger community in particular. They're very it's very used and very common for them to be using social media platform more so than we did, probably because it wasn't around when we were young. But I think it's a good way of reaching that demographic of possible film shooters for the future.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think we have to be a bit careful about the time. Can we still add another question, or?
I think we can maybe do one or two, but
Yeah.
we apologize in advance to all the people whose questions we're not going to be able to get to, because we've just gotten such great answers so far.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, I must say, it is an amazing group we have here. I think we should also talk a little bit about Far East. We just got some questions. How about the market in the Far East? We just heard that their film photography is really growing too, and young people are excited about film. Is there anybody of you guys here involved in the development in the Far East and the community, or can you just see that from your product sales?
So from the KODAK point of view, we do sell and market film in the Far East. I'm not sure it's related to any particular country, the question, but we do already sell film into those channels. Much like Europe, that would have been affected this year with supply issues, but again, that will recover again through 2021, which is a good thing. There is a social media platform in Japan, and I know that there's a full infrastructure of people marketing, selling film, and a distribution network for film. So I'm sure that the support there for the film market will grow as things move forward.
Mm-hmm. I think something very positive, definitely on the market in the Far East, is that the customer group definitely is very young. And I remember my distributor for Thailand, who told me that 70 to 80% of his customers are teenagers. And I think that is even a stronger signal than what we have in Europe. I know that a lot of our new customers would be young, but especially the customer group that is experienced enough to go into large format, there are some young people there as well. Yes, that's true. But due to various reasons for know-how and material costs, variable material costs, and the camera, I think the market entry definitely for the younger group is the 35mm. And there the upside is that also color has been rediscovered, even for the people working hybrid. I'm still waiting for the day when analog and color will also go a bit more into RA4. And I have had two of my distributors contact me that people are going into RA4. So that would be maybe another option or demand where Kodak could look to maybe open the way for consumers. At the moment, I think Adox is cutting and repacking RA4 paper. And that is just it may not be a big market, but the accessibility.
That's something what we have here too, especially in our Silvergrain Studio Lab. We got a lot of questions concerning that. So that is definitely color. We can see it from the questions we get from our readers. RA4 printing is at the moment fashionable.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have also a very large group of very young readers. We were pretty surprised ourselves when we did our research about what's the age group. And we have by far the largest group of readers in the, I think, 23 to 30 age group, which is great. I think that says something about the future of film photography. And that's another thing we can all be happy about for 2021, I guess.
Well, the only thing which still running is the time, also in 21 and 2020. Time is the same problem
So
we
I
always
guess
have.
We'll have to wrap up, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But thank you so much for coming and doing this with us. It's been so great to chat with you, and that you've taken your time and shared all your knowledge and your experience with us. And I'd also like to take a minute to thank Andreas and Ludwig, who are working for us behind the scenes, putting up all the nice screens and, you know, feeding us questions and things. And they never get enough credit because you don't see their faces on the monitors. But thank you very much, guys. And also to Christopher Osborne, who did a lot of the legwork and setting up all the, you know, the appointments with everybody. So thank you to our whole team. And thank you to everybody who's joined us from around the world. And we definitely hope that you will all come back and join us for our next Fireside Chat. We will also have some really great guests.
It will be Adox and Lena from Photo Impacts, and Lena Photography Show is also known. So yeah, I think that's... Yeah,
I'm sure it'll be another fun time. So until then, we wish you all good health, first and foremost. Stay safe. And we will definitely be looking forward to doing more of this. And thanks a lot.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, by the way. Then you will not miss any show in the future.
Facebook, Instagram. Okay, thanks very much, guys.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye now.